All right, Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
Well, guys, of course, we've been tracking the lies, the cover-up, and the ultimate lack of any accountability for a drone strike that murdered most of an Afghan family in the waning days of our in-state occupation there in Afghanistan. You all probably remember how all that went down. The Biden administration, under media pressure for their withdrawal and wanting to project power, they drone striked what turned out to be a worker for an American charity and most of his family, including children. The military top brass, they initially lied and said that they had gotten the ISIS-K militants. Go USA, we got the bad guys. After an extensive investigation by the New York Times, however, they were forced to admit that those ISIS-K militants were actually babies. The Pentagon promised that they would conduct an investigation. We can put the results of that up on the screen. After allowing enough time for public outrage to die down, they then released the results of that investigation, saying that the murdering of those babies was, quote, not unreasonable. No one would be punished and no accountability would ultimately be had. Well, we are now getting a fresh look at just how routinely civilians have been killed and those crimes covered up by the Pentagon in their operations in another country, Syria. This is thanks to another New York Times report, and here is that report. The headline is, How the U.S. Hid an Airstrike That Killed Dozens of Civilians in Syria. In it, they describe a U.S. attack perpetrated by a highly classified unit known as Task Force 9. Task Force 9 was effectively given carte blanche to operate in Syria under the Trump administration, and they operated independently of the other units that were involved in that ultimately illegal war. In March of 2019, that group, Task Force 9, dropped 2 massive bombs on an ISIS camp known to contain tens of thousands of women and children. In this particular incident, Air Force analysts unaffiliated with Task Force 9 were totally stunned by the attack. Those uniformed personnel were watching a group of women and children from the camera of a circling drone, and they instantly believed when the bombs were dropped that a war crime had been committed. Who dropped that? A confused analyst typed on a secure chat system being used by those monitoring that drone. 2 people who reviewed the chat log were called. Another responded, "We just dropped on 50 women and children." Actually, the number of dead turned out to be 80. This would rank as one of the largest civilian massacres that we know about in our illegal war in Syria. A legal officer reported it as a suspected war crime, triggering an investigation. Yet, according to the Times, all investigations and reports on the incident were so sanitized that the final analysis did not even include a mention of the strike, and the area where it occurred was bulldozed. Confronted with the Times reporting, U.S. Central Command was forced to acknowledge the strike for the very first time, but they claimed the airstrikes were justified. They said the bombs killed 16 militants and 4 civilians, that they could not say whether or not the women and children who were killed were civilians since, quote, women and children in the Islamic State sometimes took up arms. Now, the Times goes on to suggest that such indiscriminate killings and cover-ups were likely routine. But it's not just civilian drone strike casualties that the Pentagon covers up. ABC News just released a documentary showing the Pentagon's lies and cover-ups when it came to a deadly ISIS ambush of Green Berets in Niger. Now, you might remember this attack in 2017 because a lot of the public was shocked to learn that U.S. forces were engaged in combat on the ground in Niger at all, let alone the half-dozen African nations where we have operations. Do you remember a public debate about the utility of this war? Do you remember your members of Congress voting for this war? Of course not. Presidents now routinely engage in illegal wars around the globe under the flimsiest of legal rationales with zero consequences. Now, this was in Africa. It started under Obama and it continued under Trump and now under Joe Biden. In this new doc, ABC exposes an elaborate cover-up with regards to exactly how and why these Green Berets were killed. Effectively, the U.S. military sought to blame the dead, saying that the slain soldiers went on a rogue and unauthorized mission. In reality, the mission came straight from leadership.
The autopsy report was where it really started clicking that something didn't add up.
What they were being told and what we were being told were 2 different things.
Because they know that mission went horribly wrong, and it was going to be a lot of fingers to point and to blame.
They spent months and months and months trying to formulate a damn story that they thought would protect their ass.
The team inaccurately portrayed the first of 3 total missions on 3 and 4 October.
It's all about the club.
It's all about circling the wagons around the senior leaders.
The Army let me down. They let my son down. And then they lied about it.
You put all of these stories together, and you don't get a picture of rogue soldiers, but a rogue Pentagon, acting with few rules and even less accountability. Get this, in Syria, the civilian murders were so flagrant and common that even the CIA was uncomfortable. Agents on the ground reported 10 separate incidents to the Department of Defense's Inspector General, in which they said that classified group, Task Force 9, hit targets even though they knew that civilians would be killed. 10 war crimes so blatant that even the CIA ghouls thought that they went too far. Now, these crimes and illegal wars and reckless risking of American lives, this is all being perpetrated in your name. Yet somehow the only consequences are ever for those like Julian Assange or Chelsea Manning, other whistleblowers who dare to expose the truth. Gee, I wonder why so many Americans have lost faith in our institutions. These reports, this one from the New York Times, it's lengthy. You guys really should take the time to read it because they detail this. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.